I thought honesty would make me a better girlfriend, but instead, it cost me the relationship I valued most. My name's Emily, and if you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you I had everything I ever wanted in a man. Daniel, my boyfriend, was unlike anyone I'd ever dated before. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who remembered the little things, like how I take my coffee or which side of the bed I prefer. He wasn't flashy or full of dramatic gestures, but he was kind, dependable, and patient in a way I hadn't known I needed until he came into my life. Daniel didn't play games. He showed up when he said he would. He listened when I talked, even when it was about things he didn't understand. He made me feel safe, like I could finally stop chasing after love and just rest in it. For the first time, I wasn't second-guessing someone's feelings for me. I knew Daniel cared. But there was one shadow over us. One name that never really left the conversation. Jake. Jake was my ex. The man I'd spent nearly 4 years with before Daniel. Our breakup had been messy, painful, and complicated, but somehow, we drifted back into this fragile version of friendship. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe it was comfort, maybe it was just that he knew me better than anyone else ever had. Whatever it was, I couldn't bring myself to cut him off completely. When I started dating Daniel, I made a choice. I told him up front, no secrets, no lies, I still talk to Jake. I don't plan on cutting him out of my life. He's my past, but he's also a friend. I hope you can accept that. At the time, I thought my honesty would build trust. I believed that if Daniel knew everything from the beginning, there'd be no room for jealousy or suspicion. I thought being open about Jake would prove I had nothing to hide. But instead of planting trust, it planted doubt. Tiny, creeping vines that slowly grew between us every time my phone lit up with Jake's name, every time I laughed at one of his texts, every time I insisted it was harmless. I didn't see it at first. I thought Daniel's silences were patience. I thought his quiet looks were acceptance. I thought I was doing the right thing by refusing to erase my past. But now, looking back, I wonder, was I wrong for wanting to keep my past and present separate? Or was I selfish for expecting him to accept it? If you really knew me, you'd know I've always been ambitious and playful, the kind of woman who hates being boxed in. I've always believed relationships should have room to breathe, that trust means not needing to control every little detail of someone's life. Maybe that's why I held on to Jake in the first place. Not because I still loved him, but because I wanted to prove I could live in the present without erasing the past. Daniel, on the other hand, was the definition of dependable. He was the guy who double-checked if my car needed gas before I left his place, who sent "good luck" texts before my big work meetings, who never let me walk alone at night even if it meant driving across town just to accompany me. He was attentive, trusting, or at least he wanted to be. I didn't realize back then that his trust was something fragile, like glass. And without meaning to, I kept leaving cracks in it. Then there was Jake. My ex. He was charming in that careless way that always drew me to him. He could make me laugh with a single sarcastic comment, and sometimes, after a long day, it felt easy to text him, just for the familiarity. Jake didn't demand much from me anymore, just the occasional chat or meme or quick catch-up call. At least, that's how I saw it. To me, he was part of my history, not my future. But to Daniel, he was a ghost that wouldn't stay buried. I still remember the first time Daniel asked about him. We were watching TV, and my phone buzzed with Jake's name. I laughed at some stupid inside joke Jake had texted me. Daniel didn't say anything right away, but after a long pause, he asked softly, "Do you still need him in your life?" I waved it off. "It's not like that. He's just a friend." I even laughed, trying to lighten the mood, and teased him, "What, are you jealous?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "No, I trust you. It's just different for me." That was the first of many moments like that. Daniel would ask quiet questions: what Jake wanted, why he reached out so often, if I ever compared them. And each time, I dismissed his worries with jokes or reassurances, never really pausing to see the weight behind his eyes. Looking back, I realized those weren't just questions. They were warning signs. Little cracks forming in the foundation of what we had. And then one night, Jake called while Daniel and I were having dinner. I answered without thinking, laughing at something Jake said, while Daniel sat across from me in silence. I thought it was nothing. But that silence. It was the beginning of everything falling apart. That dinner should have been ordinary. Just me and Daniel, sitting across from each other at a little Italian place we both loved. We'd been laughing about work, sharing a plate of pasta, when my phone lit up on the table. Jake. I didn't even hesitate. I answered with a casual, "Hey," my voice light, almost playful. He cracked a stupid joke, something only he and I would find funny, and I laughed, not even realizing how loud it sounded in that quiet restaurant. Across from me, Daniel put down his fork. He didn't say anything. He didn't frown. He didn't even look at me. He just went still. The silence between us was so sharp it made the air feel heavy. When I hung up, I tried to brush it off. Sorry about that. Just Jake being Jake. Daniel forced a small smile, but it wasn't real. And for the rest of dinner, he barely said a word. I told myself he was just tired. That he was used to me talking to Jake by now. But deep down, I felt it, the shift. His silence wasn't patience anymore. It was distance. That night, after we got home, the quiet finally broke. "Emily," he said softly, almost too calm. "Are you really committed to me?" The question cut deeper than if he'd yelled. I blinked at him, stunned. "Of course I am." "Why would you even ask that?" "Because every time your phone rings and it's him," Daniel said, his voice tight, "I feel like I'm sharing you with someone else. I feel like I'm not enough for you." I scoffed, defensive. "Daniel, it's not like that. He's just a friend. I told you from the start I wasn't cutting him out. That doesn't mean I don't love you." But the more I insisted, the more his face hardened. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice cracked then, raw and heavy. "You've never given me all of you. You keep saying you love me, but you've left a door open for him. And as long as he's there, I'll never be more than second place." I stared at him, my chest tightening. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but his eyes, God, his eyes were filled with a pain I couldn't deny. "You never gave me all of you," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "How could I take you seriously when part of you still belongs to him?" And in that moment, I realized I had broken something in him that no apology could fix. After that night, something in Daniel shifted. It wasn't dramatic, he didn't storm out or end things on the spot. But it was quieter, subtler, and somehow worse. He stopped reaching for my hand when we walked together. He stopped leaning in to kiss me first thing in the morning. His texts got shorter, more mechanical. "On my way. See you later." No emojis, no warmth. I told myself I was imagining it. That relationships go through phases. But the truth was, I felt it every single day, the distance growing between us. And the guilt ate at me. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I had been honest. That was supposed to count for something, wasn't it? I thought telling Daniel the truth about Jake would make me trustworthy. Instead, it made him look at me like I was unfaithful, even though I never crossed that line. At night, I'd lie awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd destroyed us with nothing more than my stubbornness. Was it really so important to keep Jake around? Was holding on to my past worth risking my future? Daniel, meanwhile, grew colder. He stopped talking about trips we'd planned. He brushed off conversations about moving in together. Every time I brought up next year or someday, he'd just smile tightly and change the subject. And then came the twist that shattered me. One of his friends, someone we both knew, slipped one day and mentioned that Daniel had confided in him. That he wasn't sure he saw me as the one anymore. That maybe he should start keeping his options open, because he didn't want to waste years with a woman who still had one foot in her past. The words hit me like a punch. I had thought Daniel's silence was patience, that his distance was temporary. But he wasn't just pulling away, he was already questioning if I was worth holding on to. I tried harder after that. I planned dates, surprised him with little things, told him over and over how much he meant to me. But no matter what I did, I couldn't reach him. He smiled, he thanked me, but it was polite, not passionate. And that's when the loneliness set in, the kind that comes not from being single, but from lying beside someone who feels 1,000,000 miles away. I had wanted honesty to protect us. Instead, it had become the very wedge that tore us apart. I used to believe keeping Jake in my life was a form of honesty, that if Daniel loved me, he would accept the pieces of my past that lingered in my present. But the truth hit me slowly, like water dripping on stone, wearing away at everything I thought was solid. Jake never fought for me. He never stayed up late arguing about our future, never tried to claim me as his own. He was content with his vague role, always around when I needed a laugh, a memory, or an echo of what once was. And I mistook his presence for something meaningful. Daniel was different. Daniel had wanted all of me, the messy, the complicated, the vulnerable. But by keeping Jake in my orbit, I had unconsciously kept Daniel at arm's length. I didn't realize until it was too late that Daniel's love wasn't infinite, it had limits, and I had tested every single one of them. One evening, we sat in the car outside my apartment, silence hanging heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Daniel finally broke it. His voice was low, steady, but edged with the kind of pain that doesn't heal easily. "I wanted a future with you," he said, staring at the steering wheel instead of me. "But how can I build one if you're still holding on to your past?" I opened my mouth to protest, but the words died before they reached my lips. Because he was right. Every time I laughed at one of Jake's calls, every time I insisted on his importance in my life, I had chosen Jake, just not openly. The revelation burned inside me. I had tried to prove I was honest by keeping Jake close, but in reality, I was dishonest about where my heart truly stood. I wanted to keep both men in my world, one as my present, one as my safety net, and in doing so, I destroyed them both. Daniel looked at me one last time, and it wasn't anger I saw in his eyes, it was resignation. The kind that comes when someone has already mourned you in their heart. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. "I deserve someone who's all in. You never gave me that." And with those words, he left. I sat there, stunned, realizing the cruel symmetry of it all. Jake never wanted me fully, and Daniel no longer could. In trying to keep both, I ended up with neither. That was the karma of my choices, the price of my so-called honesty. And now, in the quiet of my empty apartment, I finally understood, I hadn't been honest at all. I had been selfish. I used to believe that honesty was enough to sustain love. I thought that if I laid everything bare, every thought, every connection, every truth, then no one could accuse me of hiding anything. But now, sitting here alone, I realize honesty without boundaries isn't strength. It can be carelessness. Daniel deserved more than my truth. He deserved loyalty, reassurance, and the comfort of knowing I had fully chosen him. Instead, I left a door open for Jake, insisting it didn't mean anything. I thought Daniel would admire me for being transparent, but in reality, he felt second place to a ghost from my past. Looking back, I see how cold Daniel became, little by little. He didn't yell, he didn't accuse, he just pulled away. At the time, I mistook his silence for weakness, for indifference. But really, it was the quiet resignation of a man who realized he was never going to be my first priority. I kept telling myself, I didn't cheat, I didn't betray him. And yet, what I did hurt him more than betrayal ever could. Because betrayal ends things quickly, it's loud, it's violent, it's final. But what I gave Daniel was slow, steady doubt. And doubt eats away at love until there's nothing left to hold on to. Jake, on the other hand, never had to fight for me. He knew he would always have a piece of me, no matter who I was with. That was my biggest mistake. I gave him a permanence in my life that Daniel never stood a chance against. The revelation hit me like a cruel twist of fate. In trying to keep both men in my world, I lost them both. Jake still lingers in the shadows, but he was never going to give me the love I needed. Daniel, the one who truly wanted a future with me, walked away because he refused to compete with my past. Now, when people ask why I'm single, I don't know how to answer without admitting the truth. I ruined my own happiness by trying to prove I was different. That my version of honesty was better than anyone else's. But what I really proved was that love isn't just about truth, it's about making someone feel chosen, safe, and irreplaceable. So here I am, reflecting and regretting, but also learning. If I ever get another chance at love, I'll know better. I'll set boundaries. I'll close old doors so new ones can fully open. Because the lesson I learned is this: sometimes, honesty isn't about telling everything. It's about choosing what matters, and showing your partner they matter most. And now I'll leave you with a question: have you ever been honest and lost someone because of it? Would you make the same choice again?